Proverbs 31 Boss podcast. This is actually season two of our time together on this podcast. And it is a monumental episode because it is episode 250. Over the last two episodes, which have been sporadic, guys, I have been talking to you about being in a new season of my life. And I would imagine that I'm not the only person that's going through this. But I want to share three essential systems for every woman in business. These are some of the systems that I use. These are some of the things that have propelled my business forward and have actually helped me to make the transition from entrepreneur to CEO to business owner. As I transition into this space, I recognize that there are three systems that have helped me. But first of all, I want to thank you guys for listening and watching the Proverbs 31 Boss podcast. If you are listening on SoundCloud, you can just go ahead and click the link inside of the show notes and join me on Facebook. I would like for you to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. There are going to be some things that I'm going to share on YouTube that I will not share on SoundCloud. So if you want to be in the know, you want to make sure that you are liking and subscribing to my YouTube channel, and you can get the alert when I actually release great content. In the past, guys, I have shared a lot of spiritual principles. And I do want to announce today that if you are a part of my community, that you will be the first to know when I release my very first Bible study. Proverbs 31 Boss Bible Study is coming to you. You're going to learn how to boss up at home, in your marriage, as a mother, in your business. And so we're going to look at it God's way. And so if you are a part of my community, you will get that information. So there's another reason to subscribe, to make sure that you are getting alerts, and make sure you're a part of my email and text community as well. So let's get into this topic, right? The reason why I'm sharing with you systems is because as you move from entrepreneur, which is more like a hustler, to a CEO, where you have more of a managerial role in your business, to actually becoming a business owner, there's a shift that has to happen in what you do, what you say, how you show up, and how you delegate, which leads me to the very first system. One essential system that you need to have in your business is a delegation system. A delegation system. And I dive deep into this. I explain this in very great detail in my self-leadership sales and systems challenge that's going to be coming up at the end of October. But I want to give you a little bit of insight on what it looks like here. So first of all, most people, when you think about delegation, they delegate in a way in which they are delegating when they feel like the person or that they've hired somebody, or the person that they want to delegate the task to is ready. As a CEO, you cannot delegate in this way. Or people delegate in a way in which they delegate a task, but they still take ownership of the task. And they don't give the person that they're delegating to full ownership. That's still like doing the task. And so one of the things that you have to learn as it relates to being a CEO, a Proverbs 31 boss, and moving out of CEO into business owners, that CEO is managerial. But as you transition into being a business owner, the moment that you step into a managerial role, you are actually leaving the wheel unattended, the wheel of your business, the sales of your business, not this actual sales, like getting profits and sales, but the sales of your business in terms of being on a boat. The direction of the business is being unattended because you're going to the managerial role. So I want you to think about that. Every time you step out of the place where you are steering the business and looking at what is ahead and discovering new territory into a managerial role of a CEO, you are actually leaving the direction of the business unintended. A lot of people make this mistake because they are actually in a more of a managerial role in their business, and they haven't even thought about being a business owner. A business owner stepping outside of the business and seeing what the business needs. This is one of the most common mistakes as it relates to starting a business, where people spend so much time in their business they don't get a chance to work on it. They don't get a chance to work on the new opportunities. They don't get a chance to work on the direction of the business. They don't get a chance to make sure that they are optimizing the systems and making sure that they're hiring the right people. And so this is a place where we have to spend some time. So there is a delegation system. A delegation system includes making sure that the person that you're delegating to is at least 70% ready. Now, I know I'll probably scared some people here. 70% ready to take on the responsibility. This is called the 70% rule. They might not do it exactly like you. They may not get to the destination just like you. But if they can perform the task at 70% efficiency, then you got to go ahead and let it go. Because what that does is that frees you up to be able to direct the business, maybe get them some training, maybe oversee the project. And of course, when we're thinking about people being in business, or certain tasks that you delegate that can be detrimental to the business if there is a mishap, that doesn't mean that you don't delegate. That just means that you use other strategies to oversee it and to hold the person accountable by still giving them ownership, but overseeing the project. And again, this is something that I teach inside of the Self-Leadership Sales and Systems Challenge. It's a 5-day challenge, and we'll be doing that soon. The reason why you have to delegate, let me explain to you the reason why you have to delegate. Because the Bible says that the greatest among you is a servant, right? And in the area in which you are created and designed to serve, the area that God has called you to, the area where you can get results like no other person, that is where you should be. That is where you should be working. That is where you should be operating. And the moment that you hold on to a lot of tasks that are not the tasks that God has strategically given you, you are not serving anyone. You're just holding on to things. So in order to serve the people that God has called you to the way that he wants you to serve them, you have to let go of some things. You can't worry about it being done just like you. You can't worry about how long it takes. You got to put some parameters on it. Make sure you put some training in place and make sure that you delegate so that you can serve in the best way possible. So let me move to the next system. And if you have a problem with delegating, I would suggest, I would really recommend that you take the Self-Leadership Sales and Systems Challenge. The reason why is because this is what keeps a lot of people in CEO mode and not in business ownership mode. You have to step out of the player space and be in the engineering space and be in the system space. You got to be in a space where you're looking at what the forward vision is, but you cannot do that if you're always putting out fires and making sure that everything is done the way that you did it. It's true. The way that you built the business is not the way that you're going to expand it and grow it. And so there's a different mindset that you have to have, and creating a delegation system and checking in with yourself quarterly, monthly, semi-annually to see what it is that you can delegate. And if there's someone that you're connected to or that's in your organization that can perform it at least 70% efficiency, you need to pass that along so that you can steer the business into new territory. So the next system I'm going to talk to you guys about today is the self-leadership system. Self-leadership system. What does the self-leadership system look like? The self-leadership system looks like having accountability built in, not just for your business, CEOs, not just for your business, the way that you're thinking. I have to have accountability for myself and just in my business. No, what we understand and what I've come to understand, the more I study entrepreneurship, the more I study business ownership from a biblical aspect and a natural aspect, is nothing can grow past you. And so if you are doing some work that is not working, the work is actually working on you. In that process, you are becoming the woman who can handle what it is that you're going after and what you're asking for. And so self-leadership is an important part of expanding your business. It is an important part of you growing. So that means having some reading time. One of the things that I teach my students to do is I assign to them at least 2 books each month. Even in another level of my business where I'm not mentoring, I actually teach those other people to actually do Bible studies on a regular basis, on a daily basis, but to also read 1 book each month. Why am I teaching them to do that? Because when you are pouring out a lot, you have to get a lot poured into you. From a biblical aspect, from a knowledge aspect, you should be reading magazines and books. You should understand what is going on in the financial space of your industry. You need to understand how your customers are being impacted by things that are happening in the world, just to understand their psyche, and so that you can guide your business forward by keeping those things in mind as you're developing programs and products. When you get to a certain space in your business, you have to understand what is happening in the industry so you can meet the needs of the clients there. Because every business is actually an answer to a problem. We are problem solving, and how well you solve problems impacts the bottom line of your business. So this is a space where we have to get crystal clear about these things. You have to have a self-leadership portion, but I'm not just talking about your business. If there is something that you're dealing with that impacts your self-esteem, whether it is your weight, whether it's the way you eat, whether it is your manners or mannerisms, or if it is the way that you speak, those are the things that you have to work on. And you have to develop a desire to not see working on these things as a chore, but understanding that the better you get at speaking, the more confident you are when you walk in the room, the more accountability that you have for doing that thing that is impacting how you show up, then that is going to propel the business forward. And so as we think about self-leadership, guys, we have to begin to enroll or include accountability as a part of it. Self-leadership, having a goal in mind and setting the goal. The next thing you want to do is begin to share it with other people and hold yourself accountable and allow other people to give them permission to help you get to the next level. So I dive into this a little bit more. There are other intricate parts of the self-leadership system. But one of the things that I want to just encourage you to do is, if there is anything, whether it's at home, if it's in your marriage, if it's in your relationship with one of your children, if it is in your environment where you live, if it's any area of your health or your lifestyle, I guarantee you that it is impacting the way that you show up in your business. And for that reason, if that's the only reason alone, if you're going to new territory, that thing has to change, which is the reason why I took some time off from the Proverbs 31 Boss podcast. There comes a point in your CEO and business owner journey where you cannot pretend. You cannot pretend that everything is great. You cannot pretend that things don't need to be worked on. And sometimes it even calls for you to take a step back so you can launch forward even further as you deal with that thing that's a thorn in your side. You got to start dealing with it. We don't live in a world and in a place, especially with social media, where we can compartmentalize what we want to share. That thing that you may even be hiding could be impacting everything else, which is the reason why it's time to grow up, to go up, right? It's time to grow up, to go up. And in that place, you got to hold yourself accountable for those things that even if people don't see it, it is still seen in your business. There's a quote by Dr. Miles Monroe that I absolutely love. And it says, what you do as a leader may be personal, but is never totally private. And that is the way I look at challenges that I have as a leader. It is my responsibility to not only take those things to God, but to get some new tools on how to manage them. Because even though it is a personal thing, it is not private, and it does impact the people that God has called me to lead. So let me take you into the third system, because this is where we're going to stop. But this is and it is the same way for you. It may be personal, but it's not private. Don't think for a moment that how your marriage is, how your relationship with your children are, how you feel about your weight, if your home is in disarray. Do not think for a moment that it does not impact you as a CEO and how you show up in business, because it absolutely, positively does. And so if no one gave you permission to work on those things, I'm giving you permission today. The last thing that you need a system for, and I hate that I call this, but this is what I got in a download. It is your fear system. This is your feedback, evaluation, and review strategy. Your feedback, evaluation, and review strategy. Entrepreneurs do not do this enough. CEOs do not do this enough. But in order to become a business owner, this needs to be an absolutely positively important strategy in your business. Everyone should know. Now, you may call it a different name, but I call it your fear strategy. It helps you to face your fears. Whenever you fail at something, when something goes well, when it doesn't, you have to have a way to go back and look at what happened so you can tweak it and not enter into a place of inertia where you keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. So how do you launch the fears strategy, right? The fear system after events, whether you have a virtual event, an in-person event, whatever kind of event it is, you need to launch the fears system. You need to have an evaluation process where you can tweak it, where you can look at what went well, you can look at what went wrong, and you'll be able to alter it so you can get better. This thing, having a system in place like this, keeps you from stopping 3 feet from goal. Sometimes it's just one more thing you need to add to or subtract to make things better, not start from scratch. And if you have a fear system in place, it helps you to face your fears, but it also helps you to take a step outside of it and look at how things really went. You also should, and I'm not talking well right now, but you also should launch the fears system quarterly to look at employees, to look at subscriptions that you have, to look at your CRM systems, to look at when you have your meetings, to look at everything in your business from outside of the business, just as a consultant that you would would do and say, you know what, this thing is working, but this thing is not. This thing is going well, but this one not so much. And it helped, or this person is good with this, but not great in this position. Or maybe this position does not support the bottom line altogether. But how would you know if you did not take a look from outside of the business to see how everything is helping or hindering the bottom line, the customer experience, and the vision and mission that you have for your business? So there you have it, right? There you have it. And of course, there is more to the story, but today I wanted to share with you 3 systems that every woman in business needs to implement. Now, men can implement this stuff too. They can implement these things. These are things that are helpful, but I wanted to share it with women today because sometimes we tend to compartmentalize things, and we need to add these systems to our business. We have systems for everything else: cooking dinner, taking care of the family, getting the groceries done. But sometimes we don't implement the systems that we need that helps us to propel the engine or business that God gave us to serve his people. And so this is not just a matter of praying and doing. You can do that as an entrepreneur. You can do that even as a CEO, but you have to have systems in place to help you launch into new territory as you go from CEO to business owner. I want to thank you guys so much for liking and subscribing to my YouTube channel, for subscribing to my podcast. And I want to thank you all so much for being faithful listeners at up to 250 episodes on the Proverbs 31 Boss podcast. As I make the transition into talking to CEOs and business owners, and not just talking to you about the spiritual things. It is still a spiritual thing, but as I elevate, my audience is beginning to elevate, and I'm going to be bringing you some new and great topics like this so that you will not only just get excited, but you can execute. Thank you guys so much for listening. Go to the show notes or in the notes section of where you're watching this video or where you're listening to this audio and follow the instructions. I cannot wait to release the Proverbs 31 Boss Bible study to you guys. It is going to be amazing and God is going to be glorified. You guys have an amazing day and I'll see you next week. I'm going to be releasing these podcasts on Wednesdays as well. Wednesdays on the Proverbs 31 Boss podcast. I'll see you next week on Wednesday and we will continue with episode 251. You guys be blessed. I love you, but God loves you so much more. See you soon.